So were we naive to think that individuals such as Secretary of State Rice and former Secretary of State Powell could get to those positions and maintain their cultural identity? Were we naive to think?
We didn't select them to be there.
Oh, well, that's true.
Just like we didn't select Booker T. Washington. The question is, and I would certainly admit as a nationalist, which I was, you know, I thought that get rid of these white people, put the black people in, everything's going to be cool. See, but I learned in 1970s, my wife, myself, and the organizations we were in, a few months after we had elected the first black mayor in a northeastern city, blah, 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 had spearheaded that, this Negro sent police up in our house trying to find out whether I was torturing a cop. This is months later. You see, the point is we did not understand classes and class struggle. See, and I always say skin is thin, but class can kick your ass. You see, it's a question of understanding that we like everybody else. We got classes. Our skin, even the fact that we were slaves, does not preclude the fact of developing. There was even incipient classes in slavery. You know, the house Negro, field Negro, you know. So I think that we remained naive to the extent about classes and class struggle, and I think some of us still, you know, are naive about that.
Except when you look at the development of a Condoleezza Rice, and not to necessarily pick on her, but she is the most recent example. Colin Powell. When you look at their background, when you look at where their parents came from, they were middle class, working class people.
Well, see, so it's different. Now you mix that up, see.
Okay.
The middle class. Now, Condoleezza Rice said the civil rights movement wasn't necessary because they let her parents in the stores on the weekends. See, was that what that was about? You know, was that what was about Martin Luther King and Malcolm X getting murdered so that they could go to the stores on the weekend? You see what I mean? You're talking about, you know, people who were raised on one level in a specific class context.
Okay.
That when that context then optimally became an optimal kind of source of their development, then sprung away. That is, the civil rights movement provided us from what Cabral called a nation class, which is basically horizontal.
Okay.
Then what it did is developed a pimple's worth of verticality, you understand, which is the class separation. And then those Negroes zoomed. They was always in those, what do you call them, in those catapults.
Okay, okay.
Except the civil rights movement, which we did, didn't allow them to catapult out of there. So it's a question of us now developing, again, Du Bois, true self-consciousness.
Now that they've catapulted out, can they be reclaimed?
Well, I don't know so much it's a question of reclaiming as a question of us reorganizing ourselves. You see, it's not that these are like misguided Negroes. See, that's what they see. That's, again, a mistake. These people are part of the United States imperialist government. That Negro who used to see every morning when they first went in Iraq. Remember the general? You know, the young general? Yes. Yeah. His brother's a general. His father's a general. His father was the general that bombed Philadelphia, that bomb moved. See, now they're not a question of reclaiming them. See, they'll shoot you. The thing is to build, to reconstitute our own organization, because you cannot say, well, we must save black people, but there's some backward Negroes we have to get together. No, the great majority is our concern, you see. And for those of us in the middle class, or those of us who are intellectuals, Mao Zedong said what? Either you are going to try to learn enough and be humble enough to lead the people, or get in their way.
Let me stop you right there. There's more from where this came from. We're going inside the issues with Wilmer Leon, my guest, Amiri Baraka, when we return. We're back. We're back. I'm Wilmer Leon. We're going inside the issues with one of the greatest minds of the 20th century, Amiri Baraka. Mr. Baraka, in reading different pieces of your work throughout different periods, evolution based on various ideological influences and development is very obvious. with that evolution, there seems to be a constant, a constant battle against the co-optation, the commercialization, and even claim of ownership of the African-American cultural product by European Americans. Talk about that. I mean, what's really at the heart of this co-optation? Does it transcend our art? Does it transcend our music into politics, worldview, into our daily lives?
Well, it's just an extension of slavery. It's not. I mean, it becomes more sophisticated, and at the base of it is the whole defined economic system and monopoly, capitalism, imperialism. I mean, for instance, and this is true not only with Afro-Americans, but any people. It's just with us, it's more, you can see it more easily because we are slaves. We have been slaves. And that relationship to us from the dominant society has always been the co-optation and use of our labor. You understand? So it's no different for, you know, suddenly you playing your stuff and you look up, there's some white people with black on their faces being you. You know, and then you have to...
Being like, you better than you.
Hey, at least getting paid better than you to be you.
Right.
Like Burt Williams had to put up a sign, you know, I am an authentic Negro, an authentic colored person. It's the same thing. When you look at rock and roll, what are you seeing? Rock and roll? I mean, I was never so offended when they inducted James Brown into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Wait a minute, Jimmy. You know, rock and roll was just rhythm and blues played by white people. But that's the regular relationship, you see. And, you know, I mean, the king of jazz is Paul Whiteman. You understand? I mean, that's a great name, Paul Whiteman. And the king of swing is Benny Goodman. You understand? Then when it comes, they won't even give Duke Ellington the Pulitzer Prize. You know, Duke said, you know, the good Lord didn't want me to get famous too young. But that has always defined the relationship.
In fact, you have a poem in the funk world, where you say, if Elvis Presley is king, who is James Brown? God?
That's right. That's right. And it's true. I mean, that's the most ludicrous, to run around, to see these people around talking about Elvis, the king. You know what I mean? But that's the way it is. And then, say, for instance, Afro-American music, at every aspect of it, once it comes out, then it's co-opted and taken, you see. Like, and you always can define, this comes right out of Sterling, when he told A.B. Spelman and I and some other student, black students.
Sterling Brown.
In his home, because he couldn't do that at the time. Black music was banned at the time. But
and you're talking about it at Howard University?
Yeah,
okay.
When I was an undergraduate. Sterling, look, you know, we went to his house, see all the music, you know, the records and stuff. He said, that's your history. Now, it took me a while to get what that meant, you see. But at every stage of that history, it's co-opted, just like our labor is co-opted. It's the same kind of relationship. But again, Du Bois, to go back to Du Bois again, he said, many people have suffered as much as we have. He said, but none of them was real estate. See? See, that's the story. You know, you say, oh, it ain't even about getting your butt beat. It's about them having transformed you into a thing, which they can dispatch the way they want to. You see what I mean? I mean, and it's interesting that no matter what you do as the kind of real estate, you can be Michael Jackson and suddenly, pap, you a defendant. You could be Bill Cosby and you could be talking bad about black people even. See, but once you get rid of your constituency, bap, you could be, you know, it's that thingness that is maintained. And what's so hysterically tragic is to see some foolish, ignorant barbarian like Bush pontificating about our lives. You understand? But again.
Now don't hold back. How do you really feel?
How do I really feel?
Don't hold back.
I don't want to use profanity. Because profanity comes out most easily. I don't want to do that, you know. No, but I mean, and then to see how, in that context now, look at it. The Democrats and the Republicans. You understand what I mean? Like, what is that? Rat poison and strychnine. I mean, but they're not the same, you see? So that you have the Republicans who've been playing the race card since LBJ, the Democrats have not won the majority of white votes since Lyndon Johnson.
Right.
See, they've been playing the white card. You know, that's why they got the Confederate flag flying in Mississippi, blah, 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 blah. But at the same time, the Democrats, and we are part of the Democrats' constituency, like it or not, you know, going to say what, immigrants, women, you know, I'm saying black people, but they cannot deal with their constituency. They are still trying to deal with their lost constituency. That's why now they sound like a weak version of the Republican Party. Right. I mean, you know good and well, Kerry should have had no trouble beating Bush to death. I mean, in the sense that Bush had 4 years of unmitigated failure. You know, lies, exposure, you know, Iraq, blah, blah, blah.
No weapons of mass destruction.
Weapons of mass destruction. You know,
the economy, pick one.
His mouth is a weapon of mass destruction. But that whole thing to get in there and to do what Kerry did, you know.
Played not to, he didn't play to win, he played not to lose.
Yeah, exactly. The whole thing was defensive. When given the nature of things, he should have went in there from the beginning, beating his butt. But that's the point. Because they are tied to the same economic base, you understand? It's two different sectors of the same class, you know, like Gore. But then Kerry gave up even quicker than Gore. You know, I sat up all night and watched that. Kerry came out with his hands up quicker than Gore after all of that blah, 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 blah. Why? And the same, what did he say about, rather than condemning Iraq, blah, 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 blah? No, just the same thing, but more diluted. You understand? So, and then Bush, meanwhile, is going around talking about, you know, getting on the whole thing about the same-sex marriage and, you know, the churches. He done hooked them up with a big bribe, faith-based charity, you know what I mean? Then he run the Negroes out in front like those ducks in the carnival, you know, so you can see them. You understand? So it's that the question of self-determination is so important for Afro-Americans, because that's the only way we're going to achieve democracy, is to create the instruments of our own struggle.
You talked about the Republican Party and the Republican politics. Your grandfather was a Republican in New Jersey, very active. My grandfather in New Orleans was a Republican.
It's a different time. Right?
Well, that's my question. Right. How has Republican politics, particularly African American Republican politics, changed over time?
Well, it's just contradiction. You know, when I'm a Marxist. You know, one thing turns into its opposite. You see, the Republicans were the party of incipient big business, for which slavery was an obstruction to its full development. That's why they got rid of apartheid in South Africa. At one point, not having the workers, as Marx say, be, quote, free, you know, actually obstructs the development of capitalism. So then you have the so-called radical Republicans in the 19th century who want to get rid of slavery because slavery is holding back the development of capitalism. And actually, interestingly enough, the Civil War not only defeats the South, but defeats competitive capitalism and introduces monopoly capitalism. You see what I'm saying? So what? They had to get rid of those little Southern planters because they were a drag on the rise of the productive forces. You see what I'm saying?